Hey everyone. So another exciting Tuesday. So actually two things that made me, no, actually three things. So these would be good to know in advance for future rollback demos. So the first one is most significantly, reliability teams are a bit swamped out with incidents. So I certainly don't want to risk adding any more work to their plate. So that's the main reason that I don't think we should do a full test rollback today. Second one is, and maybe an interesting discussion point, is whether it adds any risk to the security release. And then the third one, which actually I just suddenly noticed, thought, is somebody just enabled an experiment on staging about half an hour ago. And so that would be a clash as well. So we also in advance need to I guess like book out staging. So I'll make a note so that we do that next week, and like an hour or so before we actually, or even earlier, maybe give heads up that staging is going to be unstable at this time. So three good reasons not to attempt a full rollback today, but hopefully we'll still get some good value, because I think the most difficult thing that we saw last week was attempting to find a run book and work out whether a deployment was safe. So, Yurik, do you want to give us a demo of how that looks now, and we can see if there's any further improvements we can identify. So for everyone that's not Yurik, I put together an MR which Yurik's merged in, which is absolutely by no means not the best I've ever seen, or even close, but hopefully it's a decent first iteration. So should we give it a test?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. There you go. Let's get rid of that. Yes, I have the run book open here, and yeah, I suppose we can just run through that from start to finish. I think in particular for me, because I haven't done this in a while, this might be a bit of a revelation. Let's see. So rollback shouldn't be attempted. Let's, for the sake of argument, assume that we do have to roll back. So first step, we go to the security project. And then it says on the right, navigate to operations and environments. I think probably the first step here is to link to that directly. Let me write that. If somebody could write that to the Google Doc, because we can just link to this directly. That might be a little easier. Because then you don't have to go through all these menus on the side to figure out which one it is. The next step then would be to pick the environment. Yeah, let's do staging. There you go. Let's see, next step, use the output from Gitlab's run auto deploy status to find the required deploys. Okay, well, let's see what happens if we do that. That can go away.
I already did that recently on the F-coming release channel, if you want to use that output.
Oh, there we go. Staging. Well, it's here already. Checks triggered results. Okay. So we're staging. So we have the branch. Compare with. Let me see. Use the output film to find the required deployments to compare. Yeah, I think the first question is, so let's say we are in staging. In the current state of the runbook, it's not really clear what I would have to compare. So as an example, this will spit out revision F6B. And let me double check if that's actually the latest one. Yeah, so that's the latest one that is deployed to staging. So I'm guessing what you then have to do is... Oh, why is it not clicking? Oh, the Zoom thing is blocking. I presume we want to pick this previous one, 494, and then compare the two. But then it's not really clear why we're running this Gitlab status command. It doesn't really seem to add much value in this case.
If I remember, what I did last week is I said something like that gives you a quick link that you can click, and then you can change the versions, because from this page there's no easy way to compare the difference between these two versions. And I already had that thing opened, so I think this is what Amy captured from, because Amy, you've wrote the runbook, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is what she captured from me doing this, because if you go back to the Slack, you see there is that compare with link. Yeah. So, but if you click that one.
Oh wait, is that comparing with the? Oh no, that's comparing with production in this case, I think. Yeah.
No, it's always with the next one. So if you do staging, is staging cannery. If you do cannery, cannery production. But the point is that this makes no sense to understanding if we can roll back or not.
Right.
So it's just, it gives you the URL with the SHA, then you have to change those SHA with the one that you get from the environment page.
Yeah, so in other words, I think the Gitlab status one in its current state, at least, is not useful for determining if we can roll back, or specifically for determining the range of commits to check, basically.
Yeah, it was designed for another purpose, which is understanding what we are going to roll out.
Yeah, I'm guessing what you ideally want here is a button that basically says, compare to previous deploy, for example, and it then just opens it. I think it kind of comes back to this whole environments and deployments interface just not being very good. It's an issue for that, which at this point I think is about a year old to redo that, but it's apparently not really a priority. But anyway, I think probably the better approach for now then would be to say, okay, step one, you go to this staging or production overview. Step two, figure out, okay, what is the deploy that we actually want to roll back? It's probably the latest one most of the time. And then say, then just pick the previous staging deploy. So in this case, that would be the range 494 to F6B. Let me open that one, compare. Okay, so this, I can never get this right the first time, the order of things. Because I think either here or somewhere in the other UI, some other part in the UI, you have to do it in like inverse order.
Yeah, the URL is the inverse of what you write here.
Yeah. Let's see. So I want to compare these two. Let's see if this will work. Yeah, so I think I have to flip it around actually. Oh, we used to have a button for that.
Yeah, we used to have a button to. I think they never used it.
Like sometimes when you use GitLab, I feel like such an old man. It's like, how do computers work? Let's see. So let's flip it around. Well, that seems to load long enough that it's doing something. So I think that's worth noting.
Go on then. So which way around did you have to put those in?
Yeah. So let me see. So we are comparing 4.9. Oh yeah, and then here it shows it in reverse. Like that didn't work. That's what I entered first. Am I saying that correctly? Actually, hold on. No. Okay. So the source should be the current deploy. Target should be the previous one. Very convenient. Let's confirm that is actually the case. So if we go back to that first one, so we do source F6. That was the latest one, right? Yes. So source is the latest. Target will be the previous one. Enter. Let's see. Okay, so that seems to work. So source latest, target previous one. Then we end up here on this surprisingly small list of commits. Let's see the next step in the runbook. Compare using compare if there are any structure files. Okay. Let's see. So we scroll down to the diff. Suppose we can hear. Oh, we don't have the tree navigator here, so that's a little annoying. I guess we can do db. Oh, it's a fuzzy search. That's great. It doesn't accept-
Amy, could you link the merge request for the runbook in the agenda, please?
Sure.
Okay, so here I think we need a better way of filtering because this search box for files is just useless.
If you
Although
write
maybe
more, it sticks to what
Yeah.
you write. So if you do db/post migrate or db, it starts removing stuff.
Yeah, it's fuzzy. So here it's db/post and a changelog shows up.
Yeah, because it means
Uh,
yeah. So probably there are
oh.
no.
Right. Okay, so let's do migrations. Okay, so that doesn't seem, so the alternatives basically just use my browser search. Oh, no DB changes. And let's just double check that by scrolling through it very quickly. Yeah, okay, so there's no migration changes in this particular div. So coming back to the searching, yeah, we probably need something better for that. Because the fuzzy search, I mean, I guess if you type, migration, it limits it enough, but it's a bit of a hit and miss.
Yeah, in my experience, if you write the path starting from db, it really trims it down to just what you need. So either is there or you have just a few lines and it's easy to understand if you have migration or not. If you just write migrate or things like that, it can be harder. But db/post migrate, I think. Or the other one is db/structure SQL.
Right, let's see if I type spec, does it? Yeah, so it's a bit of a hit and miss. So there's a spec file in the E folder. So if I type E/spec, it shows up somewhere here at the bottom, basically. Yeah, for now, I'm not sure if you have any better.
Yeah, but db post migrate is longer, so it matches less thing.
Right.
It's hit and miss. I agree with you. Just
I'm guessing what you could do as an alternative, if I start a terminal, GitLab, GDK, GitLab, what branch am I on? So I guess what you could do then is, take this range, log. Oh yeah, because the git CLI uses 2 dots. Very good. Do I have? Oh, because what?
you need to fetch from. That's another thing. You need to fetch from security because auto deploy branches are only on security.
Yeah, but the commits should exist in the canonical, right?
No, we are in security release, and peaks do not exist in the canonical.
Okay,
So,
yeah, so
we
that's not gonna
always,
work.
even without the security release process in place, if there's even just one pick, you need to run this from security.
Okay, yeah, so that then won't work. I'm guessing what we could do eventually in ChatOps is, or some other tool, add a command that basically you give it a deployment and then it fetches the previous one, gets the compare div and then figures out if there's migrations. But yeah, for now, this is a somewhat tedious manual process. Okay, so we have the div, we've determined we can, in theory, roll back. Let's see how to roll back. After completing the steps to check for migrations, follow the deployment rollback steps. So let's open that.
So let's not do those today.
Right, because that's the actual rollback process.
Yeah, that's the actual. But that bit also should just work, right? So
yeah.
Yeah,
I think this part is probably the easier part, all things considered, because we just feed it the input and just quickly scanning through it, it would do most of it for us.
Yeah, maybe let's try to figure out where is the package name, for instance, or things like that. So let's write the command without running it.
Let's see, creating a new deployment for rolling back GitLab. Importing before initiating. Okay, let's pretend we did that. Application rollbacks are initiated. Let's pretend we also did that. When a ChatOps command is received, yada yada yada. Manually, it's also so that's if. I'm thinking here maybe this is just perhaps me being a bit pedantic. Right now, if you quickly scan through this, it appears as this section with the environments is required, when in reality it's an option if you want to do it manually. So I think in that case, it's best to perhaps push that further down the document and say, hey, if you want to do this manually, here you go.
Yeah, we can do something. If chatOps doesn't work, and then is a link below.
Yeah,
to
I would
another
just
anchor.
basically push it to the bottom, because I would imagine if there's a rollback, things are on fire, people are running around. I want to be able to scan through this document quickly and say, oh, for this step, I have to do this, and then I have to do that, and not this stuff in between. It's like, if you want, you can also do this. It's like, no, if it's optional, put it at the end, basically, or collapse it, but don't break the sort of flow as you go through it. Let's see. It's also possible to just start blobby. Yeah, okay, again, same thing. So you have a screenshot. I think that relates to the optional stuff. Let's see. CI/CD pipeline for deployer, upgrade pipeline, multi. I think my first response to seeing this, if I were a release manager and I had to roll back, my first response would be basically, what the hell? Not as saying it's bad, like it's actually really well written, but I think it's written for a different scenario. Like this very much reads like, how do rollbacks work? How do we implement them? And that's very interesting, but not, I think, when you're actually doing a rollback.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. So it's something that Mary and I have chatted about with quite a lot of our documentation. It's almost like we need a runbook style of literally just the steps that you go through, like we do with our release issues, and then link off to the kind of, here's why it's written this way, and the kind of the actual explanation of why it's set up.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm going to sound a little pedantic here, but that's basically what a runbook is. This, I think, if I look at this document, so the first half, more or less, seems reasonable, where we say, oh, if you want to do this, here's the command to run. That's it. And then here at the end, we sort of added this whole section, which I would almost say should go in the handbook, not in a run book, because this is just saying, oh, here's how it works. Here's how the pipeline is built up, and that's very interesting.
This is not a RAM book.
No, that's very interesting.
That's why it's here, right? This is not a RAM book. It's just It's just documentation for pipeline.
Right. So either
we need the RAM book.
So in that case, basically, I think this first chunk should be moved somewhere else, essentially. But so either way, let's see, is there anything else that I would have to read in the event of a rollback? I think that's part of the problem here. Like, let's say I've run this command. It's not clear if at that point the rest of this document is relevant. Like, there's no indication like, oh, now you need to wait for X, Y, Z, and then run this step, further down the line. So that's a bit confusing. I would imagine this produces the output that would then sort of guide you through the process, like, pipeline, and when a rollback fails, it spits out something. But right now it seems a bit like the road suddenly just stops. Just like, a bridge that's unfinished, essentially. Let's see. So does the so here it says follow a rollback. With the rollback complete, the user experience is restored, but deployments remain blocked until a fix or revert makes it through the auto deployment pipeline. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, we roll back because there's a bug and somebody should be fixing it. I think what might be helpful here is if we link to the process to follow for that, if there is one documented. I would imagine most of the time people, release managers will know that. But for the cases where, like me, you haven't done it for a little while and you're coming back, it's kind of nice to have a reference to sort of clear up your mind, refresh your mind about the process.
So which process? Sorry, I was reading something.
So the process, essentially, the rollback has finished, has succeeded. At that point, you need to go through the process of making sure that there's a fix submitted for whatever triggered the rollback.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes
that's
sense.
documented, but just a link to that here will be convenient again, so you don't have to, go back to docs and then figure out, okay, where?
Maybe there's another run book, right? Because that's a separate, like in a way, that's a separate process, which is what we currently do. I don't think we have written down, or certainly not in a
Right.
run book form, of like how we handle a revert like today. So,
Right. Let's see. So severity 1 incident. I would imagine it's this, because there is a deployment rollback as a remedy, but again, this isn't a rollback. This is more a sort of reference guide. Like a rollback is literally just basically a list of bullet points, kind of like a release task issues. It's like, on the 20th, run this command, then run that command, boom, done. So yeah, right now, basically, if I didn't know what the process is once the rollback is done, I would have to start asking other people, and they would have to start digging through, because right now it's not really clear. I mean, I personally know the process, but imagine if I didn't, basically.
I have a comment on this. So the way we are kind of designing this process is that you don't start a rollback because you want to, right? So probably is a sub runbook within the other one that you were referring, the S1. Probably would be the case also for S2 or S3, right? Once we automate it and we know that it works well, it doesn't have to be an S1. If it's something that maybe S2, it's enough, and we run it. So this, in my view, gives you the answer to your question. So what should I do after? Because it's just one step and there are other documentation there. I would like to insist on the things that I asked before, which is, can you write the rollback command? Because there is a pain point in that process that we didn't surface at all. And if you want, I can spoiler you, which is, how do you get the right package name? Because we deploy by omnibus package name, and you only have the SHA on the Git side. So that's
right.
There's another point, which is still important in that link that we were looking at. So the rollback, it just mentioned that this in the text that the rollback will start on staging, which is fine for the thing that we are doing. But in the event of running this in production, you need to remember you need -- production to it, and this is not mentioned as well.
No, and I think that kind of comes down to like this document that we have it in. It's not a runbook; it's a reference guide, but I would say it's an architecture guide, because it explains the flow of pipelines and all that stuff. But let's do the part of figuring out the package. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so let's say we have this command. I think, yeah, so for initial, for example, blah, blah. Okay, so let's say that we are here. We would have to figure out, okay, what on earth is the version that we want to roll back? Let's pretend I don't know where to get that. So I go back to environments, staging, thinking maybe it is shown here. Well, it's not. So then what I could do is perhaps go to the commit, wait for it to load, which will take a while. Observe how the UI for a moment there looked all funny. Then I would say browse files. I know I could have clicked the branch too, but I just want to make sure there's no newer commits on the same branch. Then I guess I could go to version, somewhere in this big pile. There we go. And very helpfully, that just says 39.0 pre. In other words, it's useless. So then my guess, well, you would see here update version files 2 weeks ago. So that's probably not it. Then let's see what the process will be. Normally, what you could do if the deploy is recent enough is run auto deploy status. And then I guess, yeah, you would see here the package. Is there ever a case where we wouldn't see that?
You will see the current one, but you want to roll back, so you need the previous one.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Shoot. Yeah, that's a really good question. So my strategy here would probably be to go to Omnibus GitLab, tags. And I can wait for that to load. Then go back to Slack. And so it's, wait, what was the previous again? Shoot, now I have to compare. So we want to go to 494. So I guess here I filter by tag name. And we see a tag. And now I will just hope for the best. So let's see. We click the tag because this is the tag name and we need to extract this version identifier from it. Very conveniently, the version is a SHA. Yeah, so from this information, it's kind of difficult to figure out what the identifier is that we have to use here. Let me cheat by looking at Slack. Okay, so yeah, for order deploys, we can then use, I suppose, that whole part, or is it just the, so state dash, what? Oh, this isn't this. Oh, this is the omnibus format, not the format we want to chat ops. So I think here's a step where, or here's a stage where we need to do something. Either clear this up in the runbook, because here in Slack we see that the package version is 39 bigdate dash x.y. However, here it is date plus x.y. So I'm guessing I could change that to just a dash, but that's completely not obvious.
I have a simpler approach, but still
right.
terrible, which is searching in the announcement channel. Same thing that you did on the tags, but I search in the announcement channel.
Right.
Because you have the package, but you're right. It's just replacing plus with dash.
Right.
But
let's try
in the incident is terrible because in the example you have .ee.0 and you kind of expect to maybe match the same thing, but this is only true for patch releases.
Right. Okay, so your approach does work, provided I remember to add in announcements. I can see this being tricky if people start mentioning this SHA or this version multiple times. Hopefully not in announcements, but it is possible. But then through here, I could figure, oh wait, this is the package version, and then copy paste that and use it here to do the rollback. But yeah, for this process, we absolutely need something better because if I have to do this twice, I'm going to be flipping my desk basically. I mean, I know the pros, like, I know you can change a plus to a dash and be done with it, but this is like this rollback step is something you should be able to give an intern. And if you give an intern this, they will just leave.
So when Henry becomes onboarding for us and we have this meeting, this is going to be excellent.
So we're not going to give this to Henry for at least a week, right?
We're doing this next week, right?
I feel a little conflicted. On one end, I think it's good if we do give it to him, just to show everybody, how messed up this process is. And I say that with, the most respect to everything involved. It's messed up by complexity, not by incompetence or whatever terms you like to use. On the other hand, I feel like if we do that, he's probably going to go back to reliability. Just be like, please, no.
Let's not risk that. Yeah, we'll give him a couple of weeks, I think.
The tricky thing here, so the auto deploy status, it shows the info of all the current deploys. One thing we could do is perhaps enrich that with info of the deploy that preceded that one in the same environment. Because I don't think we really ever have to roll back multiple staging versions at a time. I'm not
We
sure
don't
if
support it. I mean, it's
Right.
not part of what we want to do, right? So it's kind of.
Yeah, and even if we did, I don't think we ever had a need. So as a starting point, that doesn't really matter. Because now what you do is, auto deploy status, and it would show, hey, in staging currently we run version B, and the previous version was version A. I don't know if we can get that info. I suspect not, because we probably read this from Chef, and Chef probably, excuse me, probably only knows what we have right now, not what we had yesterday. The alternative is you go through these tags and somehow derive the package version from that. Or you would have to go to package cloud and somehow figure out what the previous package is out of the 50 that we build.
Well, keep in mind for package cloud, we only build one package for every auto deploy. So you'd just be searching the same way you would, like you just did for the omnibus tags.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking what we probably could do as well is we have that metadata project on the ops instance, and that tracks what we currently deploy. We could, in theory, I think I might have created an issue for that, enrich that to also record some info about the previous deploy. And then you can build a Slack tool that just reads that info.
I was thinking about using the environment feature here as well, because there is a bug that we were hit by a couple of days ago. So I can tell you where those values are coming from, because we had Monday morning, I think there was something funny going on with those revision. So revision comes from an API call to that instance. Package is coming from Chef. Comparison is just the comparison link between the API call on the previous one. Now, we have a new thing, which is Canary is also part of the production fleet now, which means that you may have the wrong answer, which is what happened to me. I was expecting a big diff and say, no, production and Canary are in line. It's exactly the same thing. But no, this can't be true. So we did this with Jarv, and we figured out that, yes, the Canary is part of the production fleet as well. So you have 5% chance of getting the wrong version. But if we do rely on security, so GitLab security environments, we can get the latest deployment and show that. And for the package, if we want to see the previous one, we could think about recording deployments in release tools, where we can use the full package name. So it would just be a tracker, right? So we don't really need to do anything more important, but just we keep track of the deployments.
I think technically we already do that with the deployer on ops. Let me quickly double check that. Because at some point prior to us adding tracking in release tools, I added that in the deployer. Let me see, where did that go? Operations, environments. We have too many submenus. Production. The first annoying thing, we use different environment names here. Let's say staging. Last deploy 6 days ago. Don't think that's accurate. But imagine for a moment that it is created 1 week ago, deployed 6 days ago, and then prior to that 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so it seems this isn't actually always running. And we always tag master, so that's not particularly useful, unfortunately. But we could do something, with release tools. I do feel it's maybe a little weird to start adding git tags just for this, because we would be tagging something in release tools.
Release tools tag himself now. It's already the case. It's the single pipeline that work we are doing. We no longer tag Omnibus or CNG directly, but we tag release tools, and then there is a special tag pipeline that runs. So
Oh yeah, I see now. Okay.
It's already the case. But yeah, I was referring to actually using the environment feature to track those deployments, because in theory, I don't know, if we have those values available as a variable, we could use this with plain GitLab CI YAML configuration, because you can add the environment things and writing all the information there, and it should work.
I think, and this is
Will
more a
it?
feature
No,
change. What we could do is extend the deployments API so that instead of just saying, hey, I deployed this random SHA ref, whatever, you can also give it a version name. And then, we display it, and then we could use that to record the auto deploy versions. The thing there is, though, I can see people saying, well, that's very specific to GitLab, so we don't want that. And again, it's kind of coming back to the UI, not really having the space for extra information. So yeah, maybe the release tools tags might be sufficient for now. Although if I look at these tags, there's no mention of the SHA from GitLab. So if my input is the SHA, I still can't really figure out which tag in release tools it is.
Because they are tracking the same tag that we use on the metadata project.
All right, so the auto deploy tags match, right? But so let's, if I'm in that compare page, I know what the tag is of the current deploy because I can get that from ChatOps, but I don't know what the tag is of the previous one. And so,
okay, yeah.
Right,
Go ahead.
so the current list of tags that we have in release tools, it's not clear how I would determine which of those tags is from the previous deploy based on a EE SHA or a package or tag name of whatever we have currently deployed.
This is why I was referring to using environments in release tools so that we can track the tag names when we deploy them in every environment, and then we can query the metadata project, because it's exactly what we are doing with a single pipeline, because we tag release tools with the same format of the release metadata. Then every job in that pipeline can ask information like, tell me CNG version, tell me all this information, and you can grab them. So in that sense, a ChatOps command can do the same, right? Just go to release tools, tell me staging deployments, and it just gives you the list. You pick the last two, so last, current one, and previous, and then you go to release metadata and say, could you please give me metadata about those two things? And you have all the information to build package names or comparison links and what you need.
If we go that route, would we still end up with the problem where the environments page may give us incorrect information, like you just told us about a little bit ago?
It is not the environment page, but it was the ChatOps command.
Oh, okay.
So if we, because we are asking directly the instance API. So we are asking, please production, tell me which version you're running. And you may hit canary. So in that case, it will work because we have a central point in the product that tells us the list of deployment. I would still continue to double check it because, yeah, you don't know, maybe tracking fails and you think you're running something and this is not true, but yeah.
Cool. Are there any other immediate actions that we want to highlight? Nope. Okay, good stuff.
I've captured everything we just discussed in existing issues as either supplementary comments or adjusted the issue descriptions where appropriate, which leads to the next discussion point. I created an epic for just a blank canvas to hold all of the action items that I created from the last time we had this meeting. Nothing's prioritized at all. There's no labels on anything. I just created the issues and dropped them somewhere. So
awesome.
have a look.
Thanks for doing that, Skarbek. yeah, I have some admin to tidy things up and label things and link them into the OKR epic. But that this is fantastic. So so we kind of got 2 threads that we can maybe prioritize before next week. So one is another round of improvements to the runbook. And the other one was the one we raised last week, which was investigating assets and whether we can they are something we could try and skip. Do they sound like they would still be 2 useful steps to take before we next do a run through?
I think the runbook improvements definitely, because all the technical improvements, we need to do those, but they're probably going to take longer than a week. And even if we have them, I think we need to start with a sort of manual process we can fall back to if all the tooling goes boom.
I would definitely prioritize the documentation improvements as much as possible. That way, when we onboard Henry, he could roll through that documentation and further fill in what gaps we may have existing.
Yep, that makes sense. Cool.
I think as far as your question regarding the assets job, I would probably try to, I would suggest something different. I recall during last week, Alessio brought up the fact that the migrations job for rollbacks may not be set up correctly. I think we should investigate that instead. And that's just because if we need to do a rollback in production, that would be something that we want to make sure is actually going to work as desired. The assets job is just something that adds time, which I think is not as bad as missing a job that we may need to have inside of our rollback pipeline.
Is that the case? Wasn't that we were thinking that maybe we could remove migrations
there was something
as well?
you mentioned that you think is missing from a rollback pipeline for production. Maybe I'm forgetting which job
for
that is,
production. Okay,
yeah.
For production, the problem is that it will. What is the problem for production? There was an issue with Gitlab that basically, but this was fixed this week. So there was a bug in the pipeline. So if you rolled it back production, you would have rolled back Gitlab on staging as well. But yeah.
So there's, I think, issue, it's either 1528 or 1529 is what I would try to prioritize along with our documentation updates. Because I think that's more important than just trying to speed up the rollback pipeline. We need to make sure our pipeline is configured like we need it to.
Yeah, I do agree with this. Yeah, fixing that Gitlab and prefect things so that we can test this and propagate to production as well, the same changes.
Awesome. Sounds good. So then the only final piece I wanted to just discuss was, I'm curious, would we have been able to, would it have been risky to roll back today whilst we're preparing security?
I think it would depend on what state the security preparation is in. Like if we have already deployed a security release to staging, I mean, technically you could roll that back. It might be annoying if people are still doing testing on staging for the security fixes. Although, with the current process, they should have done that in the merge request. But it's, I think in the context of a security release, it kind of depends on how bad the incident is, right? If this is something like, oh, the button in the UI is broken and users are annoyed by it, then you could say, well, that is annoying. A lot of people are affected by it. However, we still have this big security release that is, all things considered, going to be much worse if we don't get that out. So let's do that first, and then not roll back or something else. On the other hand, if this is an incident like we have to roll back now or we're going to go down, I would basically say screw the security release. It's kind of a balance between, you know, security and availability.
Yeah, for sure. So it wouldn't, it's just literally that it would block security. There's no extra complexity to a rollback or risk to the security release. Like our assumption. I know we haven't investigated this, but like just a gut feel.
I was thinking that so I agree with Yorick idea. It completely makes sense. And I think that your question, Amy, was more about rolling back staging. So the impact of our testing in the rollout of a security release. So what I'm thinking here is that, well, unless it's a remote code execution type of issue, we roll back staging. People are not using staging. It's just for testing. So it's fine. It will just, I mean, release managers are just doing this instead of taking care of the release, but that's another story. The thing, but even in case, as Yorick mentioned, that we're risking to go down and there's a big outage and we roll back, we still have to consider that the details of the security fixes are not public in this stage of the rollout, because we do early merges. So we are rolling out security fixes and people don't know about them. So I mean, we can still, I think if we need, we can still roll back kind of safely.
Awesome. That's good to know. Great stuff. Awesome. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss or raise from today?
Nothing new, but I did find that it was issue 1529 is related to making sure we have a legit pipeline for production. So I documented for the actions what two that we're trying to push forward next.
Nice. And thank you once again, Alessio, Scalbeck, for doing our notes and coordinating on the issues and stuff. Like, really appreciate that. One thing I did actually last week, I'll link them in here. I find it'll probably be text files. I ran the way I got the run book together last time was I ran the video through Otter and got a transcript, and then it's quite easy to just jump to the relevant bits of the video so you can watch. So I'll do that the same this time and add the link in. So it makes it a bit easier if you're like specifically trying to get the steps for like, oh, how did we do grabbing that package? You can just see that in the transcript it's like 4 minutes 57 and you can just leap in there. So that saved me a ton of time as well.
Could you repeat how you did it? You mentioned the software or something?
Oh, yeah, it's called Otter. And you upload a recording. I think we were trialing it for a period, but I think we must have stopped because I was hoping to get a recording, but I didn't get one. But I have an account myself. So yeah, you upload an audio file and it transcribes. It's not perfect, but it's like enough for you to find, like, if you're looking for like how it's actually, one of the reasons I was actually prompting you, Yorick, to say like which way round did you have those packaged up like things, is actually it's helpful if you actually explicitly say like, oh, when I look up staging I go to announcements because it's easier to find it later on. So
I think Zoom does the same, because I was downloading a recording yesterday and there is a transcript VTT file with times, who's speaking and in the transcript. I don't know how good it is.
Maybe it doesn't do all of them. It didn't do last week's, or it didn't capture everything usefully. But yeah, it's quite good when you get them. Like, they're not great transcripts, but they're useful to, if you've got an hour-long video, it's a great way to jump into like a relevant point of it. So awesome. So let's assume we will be able to do another round next week. We can review that as we get closer. But who would like to go up next? I'm going to nominate you, Myra, because as the release manager, I think it will actually be the most risky thing next week will be impact on the release. So to give you full control over whether you are comfortable doing that and whether you think you'll have the full context of like deployments and any kind of uncertainties around that. So if you're okay with that, I will nominate you to take the lead next week.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Go stuff, go stuff. It'll be fine, right? Because by then you're going to have the perfect run book. I just keep promising this like every week for like the next like 6 months. Fantastic. Great. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll see you all later on. Bye.